we do this every Wednesday night when at least I'm feeling okay. and we had to skip last week. I had a pretty serious bout with COVID, but I am doing better. And so thanks for asking. But we are looking at tonight, season 5, season 4, episode 5. There we have it. And so I'm going to mute myself just for a second if I can. And I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Oh yeah, I see right here. Okay, I'm back. So season 4, episode 5. The Chosen is an artistic interpretation of the life of Christ and his early disciples. And while it takes artistic license with various Bible scenarios and scenes, but it does at least track along with some of those main themes, and I find that it's always it stimulates a lot of thought and discussion. And so that's what we want to do tonight with our group that joins me for these broadcasts. And so we will be right back for that. Hello, folks. How you doing tonight?
Good. How you doing?
Good. I'm feeling a lot better. And but I do have to tell you a quick story. Is that here, of course, anybody who's watching from around in other places out here in California, is that we've been having like 100+ temps, and then what happened is that our air conditioner went out in our house, and it went out before Labor Day. So we placed
on Saturday.
Yeah, we placed a call, but they were not, answering anything. And so for many days and far too many nights, we slept without air. And, you get 4 nights? Mm. Yeah. And it's amazing how accustomed you get to those luxuries, But, and it was horrible. Yesterday, we thought we had the problem resolved. The tech came out and worked on the air conditioner, and then he left, and it was working. And then about, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it all just went kaput again.
Ouch.
Yeah, trust me, the people in my household were not happy. But we've been running the air today, and it's just nice to have that refrigerated air filling all of the hot and sweaty spaces in the house. So, all right, well, enough of my woes. How about for you guys? Just bring us up to speed. What's going on in your lives, or anything that you'd like to comment on about this episode, or anything like that. You all pretty good, I guess.
I'm loving the episodes.
Yeah.
Not only that, you touched on the round table, and
Mm-hmm.
boy, that little show of the round table really, really explains a lot of the stuff going on.
Yeah. I had to, I write the questions for our discussions, and in this particular episode, I found it really hard to write the questions for. And so what I went back in is that I then watched the round table, and that really they give you a lot of good content there that prompts a lot of thinking. And so I'd encourage you. You can find that on their website. You just have to do a little bit of poking around to find that. So okay. Well, let's just go ahead and we'll get going with tonight's discussion. And it says, in the opening scene of this episode, Joanna sends a box of valuables to the disciples to support Jesus' ministry. Read Luke 8:3. Does anybody have that handy? Luke 8:3.
I do.
Go ahead.
Joanna, the wife of Chusa, the manager of Herod's household, Susanna, and many others, these women were helping to support them out of their own means.
Okay, so she was an influential woman of her day. She was the wife of Chusa, who was Herod's, what did it say there? Herod's what?
Household manager.
Household manager. Yeah.
Manager of Herod's household.
So she was a woman of some means. And that, so they would, these ladies would help support the ministry of Christ and his disciples. And, I mean, these guys are going around here and there, and they have all their traveling expenses, and they're not working at their normal jobs. So, I suspect that it was a pretty substantial expense that that they had to. And it wasn't just the ladies that were doing that. I suspect there's probably other people that were helping out, but they are mentioned by name. It says, in the opening scene of this episode, Joanna sends a box of valuables to the disciples to support Jesus' ministry. Read Luke 8:3. What has helped you to grow in the grace of giving? Go ahead, Lorene.
I was thinking about this because I kind of thought I was generous.
Mm-hmm.
And then a while back, I realized that I wasn't. And it was kind of a shock to me because I thought, well, I'll help anybody. And I was good in the time area of giving people my time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't in other areas. And I started kind of noticing where I was being stingy. This has been a project for me for quite a while now, but I have to practice it. I just had to practice it. I had to practice maybe giving something away that I really wanted, but because I don't need that, I don't need that stuff to
mm-hmm.
for who I am, and I don't know, it's really helped. And now financially we're doing better, and I've never been the one who ran the money in our family. Ron always has done that, and I never really got a chance to do that myself. Mm-hmm. And I started doing it because I do have control over the grocery money.
Yeah.
It's all changed now it's all changed, but in the past that was, and I just started practicing it, and it wasn't fun, but now I'm so much better now, and I'm recognizing much quicker when I'm being stingy.
Yeah. So Janice's dad was very he was very kind of like committed to the whole practice of giving, and so he blessed many people along the way. And he wasn't a man of a lot of money, but he always made it a point to give generously. And then also Janice's grandmother, on her paternal grandmother, she was a widow who lived a very modest life in a little dinky apartment. But boy, she was just really insistent on giving to the church. And so it's and people like that are a good example. You don't have to have a lot. You just have to have a heart for the work of God. Janice.
I think one thing that helped me also was when we would go on mission trips to places where people, we were like, oh, well, we're not rich and we don't have, a lot or whatever. And you go to some of these places and you realize how extremely rich we are and how desperately poor other people are. And then you want to help them.
Yeah. Yeah. Lorraine.
Yeah, I was there that year. We were in Kenya,
Mm-hmm.
and Kerry shared about the Rafa House girls, and
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
they have nothing. And I was so overwhelmed. They had nothing, and they took up this collection for those girls, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't, I can do that. I have way more money than they
Yeah.
have, and
Yeah.
I can do that. But that really hit me when that.
Oh yeah, that was something that was actually the girls in Kenya. So
The
the
kids.
Rafa, the kids in Kenya, the Rafa kids are in Cambodia, and I told them about that ministry, and so the kids in Kenya, they took it upon themselves. They wanted to do that, and so it was such a moving moment.
So
You know,
moving.
yeah,
So moving.
Janice.
Yeah, it was really something when because they made two lines, one on each side of the room, and walked up and dropped money into the bucket or whatever while we sat
Yeah,
there and bawled.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That was cool. That was a wonderful experience. So, okay. Early in this episode, we find the Pharisees, believers in the resurrection and afterlife, arguing with the Sadducees, who denied both. So they didn't believe in the resurrection and the afterlife. And these were a couple of the main Jewish factions. But if you paid attention during this episode, they introduced a lot of the various factions of Judaism in the first century. So, what's the difference between a fair debate that serves our understanding of Scripture and one that only feeds our egos?
Well, Val and I were talking, and if you're listening with the true heart to try to understand each side and not just thinking your side is always right, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's like when you watch them talk, nobody was listening to the other one. You have to search for truth. You
Yeah.
really have to want the truth, and not
Yeah.
just try to,
Prove your
bring
point.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. And I've been in a lot of those prove your point type of discussions, and also watching those. Janice said she had a really hard time with these guys. Probably
I
reminded her
didn't
too
even
much.
watch them.
Yeah. Hard. They're so obnoxious.
Lorraine?
It just reminded me. I bet you that's what would happen if we got all like church leaders from all different denominations together. I could just just like
Yeah.
that. No, this is the way the end times are going to go. Oh no, this is what you think about that. Oh no, it's like, I could just see it. I could just see it.
Janice?
And no compassion or understanding or anything, just, well, then you're going to go to hell.
Yeah. So, okay. So, number 3 here is that what should guide us when we're seeking to deepen our understanding of God and His Word so that we aren't driven by every wind of doctrine? Because there is such a thing as a correct understanding of the Scripture. So, so what should guide us in our quest to better understand God's Word?
I think the Bible.
Okay. Yeah, the Bible. That Lorraine?
Yeah, to me, I was thinking about this because there's in the Bible for the basics of no calling Jesus as Lord, recognizing the sacrifice made, and even some truths on how to live the life. But there's a whole other stuff that really is by interpretation. It's how you see things, how you process things in your brain. So to me, what we should come together on those basic things, and then let it be on the other. Who knows? I mean, really, who knows about the end times? I mean, really,
Mm-hmm.
we don't really know how it's going to be. We have some things, some ideas, but I we can. There's enough of common things we can come together on, and let everyone just whatever God's going to figure it all out. He's going to educate us.
Yeah.
Eventually, we're going to know what.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. I took Janice off mute, so let me know if you start to cough again. I'm going to put you back on mute. So.
We have cats fighting over here, so I have to keep muting the cat.
Oh, really?
Scream.
Sneezing.
boy.
Our cats are sneezing.
Oh, great. So, all right. Two main schools of thought were present in Jesus' day: Shammai, strict and conservative, and Hillel, more lenient on secondary issues. Why do religious people tend to polarize in their beliefs? Why do you think we tend to polarize in our beliefs?
Pride.
Yeah, pride. And and also just from the standpoint is that religious topics deal with, if once you grant the truthfulness or the reality of spiritual things, which our culture has largely abandoned, but these deal with some of the biggest questions of life. Where did we come from? Where are we going? That is God at work in the world? If he's at work in the world, how is he at work? And so on and so forth. And so on some of those things, sometimes it is pride, and sometimes it's really an earnest desire to understand important topics. And so it's but I do think, and I liked what Nikki was talking about earlier, and I can't remember the exact words that she used, but the idea is that we need to love truth and love people. And I've heard it said before is that we go hard on ideas but soft on people. And so we need to make sure that we can communicate earnestly about important topics without becoming offensive. So I want to say something about Facebook and social media in a moment, but any additional comments on this? Well, I'll say this much, is that from time to time, somebody will say something on social media that I feel like, well, I would like to engage with them on that. And so I've gotten into the habit of just saying, reaching out to them in either as part of the thread or in a direct message, and just say, hey, I appreciated your post about XYZ, and I'm wondering if you're open to a friendly discussion about this, and that, and if you are, I'd like to see where that takes us. I don't. For me, life is too short to kind of get into these rancorous kind of give and take and snipey and snarky comments on social media. And I've never seen anybody kind of like say, "Oh yeah, man, I now see the light." But I do like to have serious conversations with people. But I think to a large extent in our culture today, we've lost that capacity to have serious conversations about important topics without it kind of like becoming vitriolic, you know. That go ahead. Oh, I thought I saw a hand. You were scratching your head. So, but, and particularly nowadays about politics, you know, I mean, people just cannot seem to have a conversation about these matters anymore. And I think that that's sad in our culture. We just don't know how to have civil discourse. So, okay. Man, I don't know why this always gets off kilter on me here. So, the Romans compelled Jesus and his disciples to carry their gear for a mile, and Jesus cheerfully goes the second mile, which reflects his teaching about the subject. Why is it so important for every Christian, including leaders, to practice, not just preach, God's word? Anybody? Go ahead, Nikki.
He showed him it could be done. He showed that what he was actually saying could be done. He wasn't just spewing a bunch of words out. He walked the walk, literally.
Yeah. Yes, he did walk the walk. So that you could tell that this really, and of course I understand that they're developing things from their own artistic interpretation, but you can see how this really grated on Judas. You know, that he didn't like it, that Jesus was so eager to serve the Romans. You know, go ahead, Lorene.
But it was so cool to watch the Romans' reaction, and I realize it's artistic.
Sure,
you know, but
sure.
Like they don't know what to do with it now, and I think that is the Jesus way. When we do things opposite of what our human nature says to do, it makes a difference, and people will notice when we put our words into action. And I think that's been a problem for a long time. We're so easy spouting out what people should and shouldn't do, but we're not showing Jesus' love.
Yeah. You know, we need to, and you know, and one of the things that I'm really kind of like, I guess I committed to is the idea is that Christianity also needs to be lived out in our own homes. You know.
Yeah.
That, yeah. But, you know, it's so easy for people to kind of live it out publicly and in the church arena. But treating each other kindly and patiently and forgiving and all of that in your own home, sometimes that's where, you know, the biggest challenges are. Janice.
Well, you know, we're supposed to be a light to the world, and if we're saying this is what God expects of us as Christians to live this way or that way, but we don't do it, I mean, what is it saying to people, you know? In fact, Karen today, our daughter, was picking up our granddaughter from school, and she just, is this lady in front of her who's driving her nuts because she was letting everyone go around her into the pickup line, kind of like she was being nice, but you know how like when people are giving you the right of way, but they don't really have that right of way? And so she, because I was really getting upset with her, and then Cambry gets in the car and it says something about this woman is, and then the B word, and then on the other side it had a church name and the website, and they're like, okay.
So she had that. So the offending lady had that on her car.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, maybe it was a religiously divided home, you know. I mean, that's crazy, you know. That All right. Number 6. According to the creators, Judas wanted to speed things up for Jesus to become the military leader to overthrow the Romans. What dangers do we run into when we try to fit our expectations of God into our timetable?
It never works.
Never does. Yeah. Nikki?
We miss what he has for us.
Mm-hmm.
Judas is going to miss the whole thing because of his little agenda.
Yeah, isn't that sad? You know, really. Judas misses the whole thing because of his little agenda. You know. And we don't want to be like that in our own lives, where we miss the whole thing because we think we know better. You know. And it's hard. At least I find it's hard sometimes to let God's will develop rather than enforcing my will or trying to make God's agenda conform to mine, you know. So
may I
Yeah.
say one other thing?
of course.
I thought what they depicted in this was kind of interesting when Judas went to meet up with his old business partner.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of felt like he was like the serpent was in the Garden of Eden with Eve. Well, doesn't he need your expertise? And didn't he pick you for this? And aren't you so this? And like he was just baiting him, like just revving him up. And I thought they really kind of showed how you could see the light bulb in his head. Well, yeah, you know, kind of
Mm-hmm.
things are starting to go the other direction now for him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's one. Go ahead, Lorene.
It's just, you know, I think he wanted someone to approve what he was doing. And I think we all fall into that. We want to go people who are going to tell us, oh yeah, you did the right thing. And all the while Jesus was telling him, remember what I preached on the road? He's like, remember that sermon, Judas, you know? And that was before he went to see his friend. And I just think he was just looking for someone to okay what he was doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's and you know, it's a temptation for all of us.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
It's Judas is a cautionary tale. His life, and obviously that we may not fail in that dramatic of a fashion, but I don't want to fail at all. You know. So okay. According to this series, the seeds of Judas's betrayal took root and grew over time. What dangers do we face when we don't uproot the weeds of self-will in our lives?
Consequences.
Yeah.
They overtake us.
Just like weeds.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's kind of the thing with the story with our air conditioning too, is that no, really, is that, and today we actually signed up for the maintenance plan, so because yeah, well, you know, and this I trust this guy, he's a good guy, but you know, we wouldn't have had this major problem, or at least the possibility of having this major problem would have been lessened if we would have taken care of minor issues.
like the service light blinking on and off.
Yeah.
Just ignore it. It'll go away.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, I did everything that I knew how to do, but that was the problem, you know. And it really wasn't like it was brain surgery or anything like that. But those guys know how to do it, and I don't. And that's why he was driving a big old fancy truck. You know, there's a lot of desperate people out there when it gets to triple digits to get their air conditioning fixed. You know, Lorene?
I don't know if this was discussed in the round table, and I didn't come up with this because I was listening to something else, but I was noticing in the way that the writers wrote this that they were, I think they were comparing Martha and Judas, and I don't know if that was, but I have connected that before. But here you have two people who were intent in a good way on practicality and function. And then when it came down to it, Martha listened to what Jesus said and Judas did it. Never connected that. And maybe it's not even connected in the Bible. I don't know. But I really saw clearly that they both really were being very practical, and they were doing what they're supposed to do as part of a group, you know. But then when it came to listening to Jesus, that's where the difference, that's to me where the difference was Jesus finally got to Martha. He made, you know, she sat down and she opened her ears and she quit thinking about the practical stuff, you know. I really liked how they did the Mary and Martha thing.
Yeah.
Really.
Me too.
Yeah. What'd you say about that, Janice?
Boy, can't talk to you about anything.
Okay. All right.
I really very much relate to Martha, you know, and I think not only is my personality tends to be that way, but I've had a job in the church where that's what I'm supposed to do, you know, and so many times I'm working and I'm not being fulfilled spiritually through events and things, because I'm hoping everybody else does. I think about it ahead of time and I try to make it so that people will really be blessed. But to be brutally honest, I'm not usually. I'm just tired.
Yeah. So, well, we're going to get to Mary and Martha in just a moment. So, let's go there. So, actually, it says God does not treat us according to what we will do. You know, because Jesus, I don't know, you know, I've always been curious about the interior life of Christ. And you know, there's just certain things that are mysterious that we just don't have answers to. But I do think that Jesus had a pretty clear understanding of who would betray him. Certainly we see that in the final week of his life, but but he also talks about that elsewhere in the scriptures. And so, but it's interesting that Jesus never did treat Judas poorly as a result, you know. And so, in the round table, they said something like, you know, God does not treat us according to what we will do. He deals with us how we are in the moment. And Jesus was kind and patient with Judas, even though he knew that Judas would betray him. How does this help you to better understand how God interacts with you or the people in the world?
I'm very, very grateful for that. You know, he knew, and you know, when he was looking at Lazarus too, he knew what was going to happen, you know, and he just, I love that he just treats us as we are in that moment instead of what we will do or could possibly do. I love that.
Yeah.
That's redemption. To me, that is what true redemption is.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he just loves us. He loves us appropriately in the moments that we're in. You know, sometimes that may require a rebuke. Other times it may require tenderness. But he responds. He always is, and Jesus is always giving us what we need in the moment, even if we don't see that he is. You know. So, yeah. It's also interesting, you know, God's patience with the people in the world. Because when I think about, and we've talked about this a lot previously and also in other settings, but when I think about what's going on in the world, you just think, okay, God, come on. How long is this mess going to continue along these lines? And there have been occasions when I get myself tripped up thinking God's awareness of the level of evil that is going on in the world is exponentially larger than ours, you know. And it's amazing that he hasn't just pulled the plug on it and said, I'm done, you know. But, I was talking with a fellow the other day, and he was telling me about somebody who was involved in a very debased activity. And I'm thinking, you know, it's incredible that God is just patient with people, giving them opportunity after opportunity. You know, it's there's that passage of scripture. I think it's in the book of Lamentations, but I can't remember for sure now, where it says that he does not treat us as our sins deserve. Maybe it's in the book of Psalms. So, oh well. So, but we see that God in the flesh doing that in this situation with Judas. So what can we learn as I reposition this text? What can we learn from the Mary and Martha dynamic in this episode?
All right, I have to say this. My whole Christian upbringing, whenever this story was told, Jesus was scolding Martha. I mean, that's just the way the story was always told. Was she was getting rebuked for, and in this scenario, the way they wrote it, I loved it because Jesus never once scolded her. He brought her to him, and he sat her next to him, and he just was, I don't know, it was so beautiful. I loved it. It will forever change how I hear that story because Jesus was not scolding her. Yeah. It was so good. It was so good. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Janice?
And he acknowledged what she did and what value she brought to the whole thing. And, and all that. But then at the same time, kind of showed her that she didn't have to do it by herself, that these guys could get up and go get it themselves, and kind of all that kind of stuff. I really thought it was really beautiful.
Yeah. So.
It was one more way I think, and I'm hyper aware of this, but it was one more way Jesus broke those bonds of male-female stuff. Like, because that culture, that was the woman's job, was to be in the kitchen, fixing food and serving it. I mean, and he just broke that. He just said, no, come sit beside me. It was just so lovely.
And culturally, Mary was the one in the wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I love, I love just from the acting. I'll get to you in a second, Nikki. Where at one moment in that scene, Martha just really gives Mary the stink eye, you know. and,
Yep.
but Mary is so focused on Jesus, she's not even looking at Martha, type of thing. Nikki?
Well, when she was preparing the food, I was looking at it, the bread and the honey and the peaches, and it was really beautiful. And then I liked when he said, I want you to feast on my words. Like he gave this description, like how he wants you to just sit at his feet and like that's the food. And I thought that was so good. And then he looked at her, he said, I'm not rebuking you. They really tied it all together so perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But let's eat.
Yeah. So that and I realize that this is all based on. It's not all based on, but a lot of this is that they just kind of like make up their own artistic interpretations of things. But I love it when they first come to the house and Lazarus is all, he's all indignant.
What are you doing here?
Yeah, and there's another scene in this particular episode where Simon the Zealot, Z, in the box, and I think it was Andrew who's kneeling down next to him, and he opens up the box, and then he acts like some rabid animal is coming out, and I told Janice, typical guys. I mean,
That was good.
We think that these people in their daily travels with Jesus, that it was always kind of this pious vibe going on. And who knows what it was really like. But I like to think that there's some of this cutting up and having fun and working through stuff. Janice?
I know our family would fit in much more with this group.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, all right. And so finally, Jesus expresses his frustration and disappointment that his disciples misunderstood his teachings. He's talking to his mom about that. When does frustration and disappointment cross the line from legitimate human emotions to sin? Because there are a few times in the Bible, in the New Testament, that Jesus generally sounds frustrated. And but we also know that he was without sin. So when does frustration cross that line? Go ahead.
Well, I thought the round table described it really well because I didn't know what they were talking about really, and they said that when we express our emotions inappropriately, and they gave an example of like when you get mad at somebody at work and come home and kick the dog or something like that, and they said that Jesus expressed his emotions appropriately and directed them the right way, whereas we don't. So I thought that was a really good way to describe it.
Yeah.
Like they're not saying he didn't get mad, he didn't get angry, but he expressed it in the right way.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I tell you, just the whole experience, the whole experience of being human is hard enough. But it's amazing that God in the flesh was able to pull off humanity without sin. So quite a deal. Janice?
I really loved this whole scene. It was my favorite. With Jesus is talking to his mom, and like who else on earth would understand what he's talking about and where he's coming from than the woman who had the angel tell her that you are carrying the Son of God. Like she gets it. And for them to have that relationship and that conversation and stuff was really special.
Even Jesus needed his mom.
Yep. I don't know
Yeah.
if anyone else, but
Say what?
I don't know if anyone else noticed, but Jesus's mom was wearing cross earrings. I
Oh,
don't
really?
know. Yes, I don't, and I know
I
there was.
didn't notice.
I know there's all kinds of crosses out there. I understand that, but it just didn't seem. It was weird to me. I kept looking at them like, well, of course I'm going to notice earrings, but I just kept thinking those are crosses. They're crosses. It was. I don't know if they just. I don't know.
She wore
I
them to
don't.
work and forgot to take them out.
Somebody's gonna have a watch on it in one of the scenes.
Yeah. That's funny.
That's weird.
Yeah. So, okay, guys, before we wrap up, anything else you'd like to kind of like speak about how this episode, or some thoughts about this episode, or how it impacted you? I understand they're coming. Go ahead.
It's just so good.
Yeah.
Just touches every aspect of your life. It's just really good.
Yeah, I enjoy it. They're coming out with season 5. I don't know exactly when that's going to be released. Excuse me. So, but I'm looking forward to that. I don't know how many seasons there are going to be. I thought that. Oh man, I'm starting to sound like Janice. So,
Thanks.
I thought that they said initially 7, but I don't know if they can stretch it that long. So,
We were
All right.
wondering about that. We were wondering if they're going to do like post crucifixion.
yeah.
How far can it go?
Yeah, but once you've done like the life of Jesus, everything else is downhill from there. I was
They
thinking,
did show some later scenes when they're writing the books, and
yeah.
weird, so they could go forward with that. But
Yeah, I thought it. Go ahead.
I think it'd be cool to see how the church started.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, like they've done with the life of Jesus. But I don't know.
Yeah, I would like to see a really a good development of the Book of Acts, but or even Paul's, of course, which is part of the Book of Acts, but Paul's tours and Paul's ministry. But time will tell. I'm just personally grateful that that there are Christian artists who are thinking seriously about both communicating faith, but also doing it in a very artistic way. So,
I watched one little tiny clip. It was some lady. She was interviewing the guy who plays Jesus, and she's down and have a cup of coffee with Jesus. What would you say? And he said, "How did I do?" And
I saw that.
I saw that clip. That was good.
how did I do that? I don't think that'd be on our minds.
yeah.
It was cool.
That's cool. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this thing up here. But once again, thank you for spending the evening with us. And for those who tuned in, I appreciate you guys also watching. So, but every Wednesday night at 6:30, we do this Discuss the Chosen. And then every Sunday, wherever you're watching us now, on social media, we also broadcast our church services here. And so, and Lorraine Ramirez is saying good night. So thank you, Lorraine, for watching this evening. I appreciate that. But I hope you're able to join us next week or on Sundays. And I just trust that you're blessed by all this. We'll see you next time.